Hi. We are live. No one is watching live yet, so I'll just tell the people who are watching this after, after it has been recorded onto YouTube, the people who are watching it after the fact. I'll tell you what I want to do today while we wait for a few live viewers. I want to do a short live where I demonstrate a few of the things that you can do with a function generator apart from making envelopes. Like for a regular VCA situation. So I want to do the other things that you can do with a function generator. I want to show you a few. One of them is, of course, creating subharmonics for a VCO. You can also create sync tones. I think you can, I know, I'm just hoping we can figure out a nice patch to demonstrate the slew or filter capabilities of a function generator. And maybe we can make bare bones VCA as well. We'll see. I also want to demonstrate that there's a difference between different function generators. Mainly Contour 1 by your analog audio design is a little bit different than most other function generators. I'll show you why. While we wait for a few live viewers, let me pull out all the cables here. I thought I had a nice patch going to have playing as a background for my intro, but apparently I already destroyed the patch. I was trying out Shachmat's new module, Bishop's Miscellany. It's a really hard name to pronounce. So Bishop's Miscellany Mark II. There's an embargo on content, so I'm not allowed to post any public content about it before the 17th. But well, it's in my rack already. It's over there. Because, well, there's no manual. There was no manual in the box. There's no manual online either. So I tried figuring out a few things. I read the manual of the first iteration of that module, but, well, after comparing the two, I soon realized that the new one has a lot more features and, well, it has a completely different layout. But at least I could kind of figure out what the module is made for. So the first one seems to be aimed towards CV recording. And then playing it back and mangling it. This one seems to be more aimed, well, also towards that, but I think it's more suited for generating cool melodies and gate patterns and whatnot. I mean, you can add slides and triggers, and I have a feeling it's all kind of random, or as random as you want it to be. So, well, I'm looking forward to being able to read the manual of Bishop's Miscellany Mark II, so I can understand more what's happening, because it's a little bit cryptic. I could figure out a few things, but I really want to read up how to properly use it. So, is anyone alive? Well, I can see that there are 4 people watching. Hello, welcome. Today I want to have a look at function generators and how we can create subharmonics with them, sync tones, so sound design stuff, which can be a little bit technical, but well, I will focus on the sound. I'll also try to use a function generator as a filter, and I'll demonstrate why contour 1 by your analog is a little bit different than, for example, maths or delta V. Those are the 2 other function generators that I have in my system. So while we're waiting, let's patch up just something from Odessa here. Not because that's related to what I want to talk about, but just to have some sound going. I think that might help people stick around. What I do want to try is, in advance, create some stepped voltages. Well, no, I want to first of all create a sequence that sounds nice. Maltas says hi. Hi, Maltas. Thanks for joining. How are you doing? Are you perhaps on Malta or not? Oh, let's use Odessa as a substitute VCO for now. Let's go for a major pentatonic scale. Let's remove all the slides. Malta says, no, I am not on Malta. I wish I was on Malta. I know, right? I know, right? Adrock says, hello. Hello, Adrock. I don't think I've seen you two around. So welcome to the stream. In case you missed the part where I explained what I want to do today. Today I want to have a look at a few function generators and what we can do with them besides regular envelopes. Radio Blog Tirana says hi. Hi, Radio Blog Tirana. Radio Blog Tirana asks, what do you think about polymaths? I don't know what you're referring to. Maltas says, I watch your stuff, but I didn't know about the live stuff. Well, it's only recently that I started exploring live streams, and well, I've been enjoying it a lot, since I really enjoy interaction. And well, usually on videos there's very few comments, which makes me feel a little bit sad sometimes. Well, sad is not the correct word, but it's a little bit well, unexciting. So being able to interact with you in a live context is much more fun. Radio Block Tirana says Polymaths is the new Mats from Make No Noise. Oh, nice, they're making a new Mats. I was wanting to ask, but I wanted to wait a little bit so until there's more people in line. But I wanted to ask if there's people who followed the Super Booth madness and if there's any must-have new modules. I haven't followed any of it. John PEDM says hi. Hey Brice, hi John. I'm a big fan. I bought Orbit 3 after watching your videos and love it. I love Orbit 3 as well. Thank you for your work and love of synths. You're welcome, John. Novak says Polymats is a new poly make noise mats, at least the function generator part. Anthony Northcutt, hi Anthony. Anthony says, I absolutely love your wallpaper. Well, thanks. It's inspired by wallpaper that used to be in like a room, a spare room of my grandmother's house, where I used to like sleep when I went over there to stay for a few days. And there was this brown-orange color scheme. I don't really find it terribly beautiful. Well, I don't find it as beautiful as I find it comforting and cozy. Radio Block Tirana says, I think with a mats and a multimod you have the polymats, just some more controls over being an oscillator. I think from what I saw. Novak says, yes, I'm also a big fan. Thank you for your videos. You're welcome, Novak. Malta says, very 70s. He's talking about, he or she is talking about the wallpaper, of course. Let's create one step with some slew. Malta says, make that a he. Well, you have to be careful sometimes when presuming someone's gender. So I always try to be considerate about that. I think this sequence is okay. We might be listening to it for a while, so I hope you're not yet bored of it. That's one thing that I noticed when rewatching parts of the live streams, that, well, the sequences just keep going. It's very repetitive, but, well, that's the downside of building patches from scratch. It usually is like that in real life when I build patches, so of course it's the same thing when doing it live for a live audience. John says, I have Strega, function, mats and envolator. I don't know, envolator. Looking forward to seeing what you do today. Novak says, a little delay couldn't hurt for life. There you go, Novak. Radio Block Tirana says, what's your use of Nibbler? Well, you should rewatch the last live I did, because I focused a lot on how I use Nibbler as a Benjalin or as a Turing machine even. But a lot of the times I just use it to create stepped voltages. Let's yes, let's let's demonstrate that. I'm just going to use a clock out from my sequencer into, well, you can use Nibbler two ways. You can use it just as a counter. Apologies. You can use it as a counter, but you can also use it as a shift register. That's usually how I use it. And to make that work, you just need a clock and some kind of VCO. An LFO might work as well, depending on, well, depending on your goal with it. Let's patch that back in. Apologies for not explaining this patch here, but I'm just making a cycling shift register. I think it's called a linear feedback shift register, which gives me stepped voltages from the analog to digital outputs. I'm sorry, there's getting an awful, what's it called, feeling in my throat. Novek says, I feel like I haven't really got how Nibbler works yet from videos, but I can tell from seeing all the things people do with it. It's a well thought out design. Yeah, it's really rather versatile. If you look into shift registers and what you can do with that, I mean, that's a can of worms worth exploring, and all of those things you can do with Nibbler. Radio Block Tirana says you use two shift registers for a Benjamin type. No, just one. You can use two Nibblers to create a longer shift register, but you can do it with just one shift register. You just need two VCOs and one Nibbler. Anyway, I created a stepped voltage here. Let's see how that behaves when I send it. When I send it into Odessa. No, I liked it here more. Novek says Schlappy make amazing stuff. Yes, they do. Absolutely. What happens when I send this stepped voltage into tilt? Oh wow, this is something weird going on. Radio Block Tirana says nice. Thank you. Let's increase the reverb, because why not? Anyway, I want to not use Odessa for this video, at least not now. I want to start off with a really basic oscillator. So let me patch this, well, let me unpatch the stepped sequence. I will use it later. It's just ready there when I need it. And Let's send this sequence into something else here. I want to use cycle 5 just for its basic saw wave output here. Let me see that this isn't too loud. This of course is too loud. Something along that line will be good. Let me take the vary wave output. That's alright. And let's patch the sequence. No, wrong cable here. Let's patch the sequence I just made into the cycle 5 VCO. Now let me move my camera Radio Block Tirana says I have a Benjamin and I love it. I have another shift register, but it's hard to get it to do the same thing as the Benjamin is. Well, it depends on the length of your shift register. And well, they all will probably behave a little bit different. All Benjamin-like patches will behave differently, I'm sure. But the basic principle is actually rather well, once you get your head around it, it's really straightforward. I mean, I can add I just need to move 3 cables and I have I could make a Benjamin out of the current patch on Nibbler, which is crazy if you ask me. Let's try and get this cable out of the way by actually using a longer one. No, it's just as much in view. Well, let's do it like that. And I want to be able to use data if I decide I want it. Let's program this guy here. I could prepare like all of this, but I don't mind doing this live. I'm sure you have a little bit of patience to wait while I set up things. Let's send this VCO into data. Now, if you're wondering why the wave shape is changing, I'm turning the vary wave knob on your analog cycle 5, which changes the wave shape. That's a really nifty feature. But let's just go for, no, maybe let's go for a square wave, my least favorite basic wave. But hey, it will be easier to show you the subharmonic stuff. Square waves are always annoyingly loud. Let's bring down the volume a bit. Novak says, yeah, don't worry, patching takes time. It does. So first I will be using mats. I'm sure you already figured that out. And if we want to make subharmonics, there's a really nice video Mylar Melodies did about this Well, let's go over it again. If you want to make subharmonics, let me melt this VCO here first. So this is just the pulse wave signal. And you want to send this into a trigger input of a function generator. Can I get this cable to behave? Of course it's not going to. Well, you'll have to watch past the cable. Even though it's really annoying dangling there. Oh well. And then you take the output of your function generator, which for maths the really regular output is this one, at least for the left function generator here. Let's monitor this as well. Well, let's send it through the oscilloscope first. Let's turn this to being linear. Now you should be able to see on the scope. But I'm noticing that my inset is right over data's window. So let me change that. Good thing that I checked it. Let's try to get the focus a little bit better as well. Well, I think that's okay. So right now I'm really just, you could look at it as if I'm just using maths to generate function. It generates an envelope whenever there's a trigger signal at the trigger input. Now, because our trigger signal are consecutive pulse waves, so consecutive triggers, it will create a function, it will create this AD envelope every time it gets triggered. And well, when we listen to the output of maths just by itself, so now we're just listening to the red trace on the scope here. This sounds a little bit like something between triangle wave and a saw wave, and that's exactly what we're seeing on the screen as well. We can play around a little bit with this shape, can make it like exponential. This makes it sound sharper as well. Look, now we have a nicer saw wave. The way these subharmonics work, let me quickly demonstrate. So these are all subharmonics. The reason they work is because a function generator like maths doesn't restart its envelope as long as the attack phase is going. So imagine the attack being very long. Well, we don't have to imagine, let's just show you. Now this wave is jumping around a lot, so it's hard to see. But you can make out that the attack phase is longer than one cycle of our original VCO, and I'm talking about the pulse wave here. So it gets triggered and maths starts doing its attack phase. Even when there's a second pulse coming in, it won't restart because it's still on its rising edge. It's only in the decay phase or after the decay phase that the next trigger will trigger another movement of the function generator. And that's why we can make divisions by skipping certain cycles of our original wave. And well, if I remove the sequence for a moment, it should be easier to see and hear. So let's show it again. When I increase the attack, you can see now it's like overlapping 2, now 3, 4, 5, etc. So we divide the frequency of our original VCO by 2, by 3, by 4. So if you divide frequency by 2, you get 1 octave below, but when you divide the frequency by 3, you're not jumping full octaves anymore. So that's why subharmonics can sound really interesting. And since the length of our attack phase isn't related to the pitch of our VCO, it's possible that some notes are getting divided by 2, other notes are getting divided by 3, etc. This makes it even more interesting, in my opinion. Changing the decay doesn't really change a lot of the behavior of the subharmonic, but well, at some point it just doesn't have the time to drop down again. What my point is that it's the attack phase that makes this work. Let's bring back the original VCO. I think it's really interesting to start playing like a regular VCO and its division together. Because you have these interesting harmonic or well, just interesting intervals between the two. Does this make sense to you all? So for people watching now and having tuned in later, we're talking about function generators and how to create interesting things with them, like subharmonics, sync-like tones, slew, filter behavior, etc. Now, what I find particularly interesting is like using a second channel of your function generator to generate another note. And then we get almost into like chord territory, even though there's some weirdness going on, which I really much like. Too much what the original shape of our VCO is, but keep in mind that maybe a sine wave won't trigger certain envelope generators. access, the subharmonics sound kind of unstable in the same way, kind of way a PLL would. Yes, exactly, and that's why I like them so much. I like PLLs as well, because they're so unstable. Novex is very nice when alongside the original. Yeah, I think so too. And now I can use that stepped voltage that I created earlier on Nibbler. I can use that to modulate our attack phase on our function generator. Now I might have to attenuate it, which I can do right here on Maths itself. You can use just an external attenuator as well, of course. You don't need to use stepped voltages, but well, I want to for this patch. Attack phase of the left function generator here. The one that sounds like this, so the red trace here. The attack phase is kind of determining how much we are dividing the original VCO. The attack phase is being modulated by a stepped, attenuated LFO. Bring back the second subharmonic and the original signal. And well, you can start panning these around. If I pan both subharmonics here, only one is shown on the screen. When I pan them left and right, I mean, they can be really, really interesting. And let's bring in more reverb. I think this sounds really, really lovely. What do you think? Novak says it's lovely the way it plays up and down the subharmonics. Yeah. Maybe I should patch up another stepped voltage. Maybe let's just use a VCO, no, sorry, an LFO here. I know all of this is happening off screen, but well, I'm just patching up my clock to an LFO that has a positive stepped random output, and I'm punching the camera in the meantime. I'm just attenuating this stepped LFO here. I just want to modulate the right subharmonic here as well. Let's see, this is just spur of the moment. moment thought, let's see if I can add some vibrato to cycle 5, which is our VCO. I think that's sounding really good. Let's just change up our sequence because it's starting to get a little bit monotonic. Adrox says, how did you add the vibrato? So I just connected a sine wave output from Generate 3 in LFO mode to the volt per octave input on cycle 5. There's 2 volt per octave inputs. On another VCO you should probably just use the FM input and the built-in attenuator if you have one. I'm using Generate 3 to generate my sine wave because I have attenuators on the module itself. Things up a little bit. Anyway, let's remove a lot of this, not all of it. Go. So now we're back again to just well, what we started off with, just our VCO here, and well, the output from the function generator in red. When I switch my function generator to cycling or looping mode, we can create something else. So you can see from the LED here that we are cycling our envelopes, which you can hear right now. And you can see it on the screen as well. So this is just a cycling envelope. When I reconnect my trigger signal, you can see that when I start making my envelope really short, you can create sync tones up until a certain point, of course. So we're just listening to the output of the function generator here. You can play around with the shapes here. I mean, at some point we are starting to get like subharmonics with sync behavior, but I really just want to focus on the sync behavior. So what happens is our envelope or function starts cycling, and I have my attack phase turned down entirely for this. When I start increasing my decay, the envelope is longer, but it will always get resetted, at least when it's in its decay phase. That's why I turned down the attack. It will always get resetted by the next pulse of the VCO, which, well, sounds like sync. Let's bring back the sound of the pulse wave. I also think these type tones sound good when combined. And we can modulate this as well, of course. Let's use a sine wave to modulate this. Let's attenuate it here. And let's send the attenuated sine wave into the modulation parameter or input for the decay phase. Sorry. And again, you can do this in stereo when you bring in second function generator here. Let's just quickly patch this up. And let's do this left-right thing again. So now we're just listening to both outputs of the function generator. Let's add another sine wave now to the right part of the function generator to modulate the decay phase. And then when we bring back in the original pulse wave here, with some reverb and delay, I think that sounds absolutely great as well. It's a little bit less unstable than the subharmonics, but I still think it sounds really nice, and it's just a clever trick, something cool that you can do with a function generator to spice up your basic VCO. Radio Block Tirana says sounds great, thank you. Now, of course, all of this sounds awesome once you start sending it into filters. Let's try and reach here. Just barely. Let's see. Maybe, well, let's just show you the filter. So I'm just sending it all three sounds to a filter. Let's take the bandpass output here and let's send it to a centered channel. Maybe if I turn off the looping on one and patch the modulation to the attack phase again, we should start hearing subharmonics on this side of the function generator again. Let's go for the low pass output of the filter. I mean, you can start combining all these techniques together. Okay, let's remove this. And that as well. This and that. So let's pan back down here. I have to try and not forget that my overlay is on the right there. By the way, for people just joining in, I'm seeing that a lot of people have left, but that's okay. For people just joining in, we just patched up subharmonics using function generator, well, maths. We also created some sync sounds with maths. And now I want to try and create maybe like some filtering with maths. I'm sure you already realize that a function generator can also be a slew limiter when you send something into the signal input, which on maths is this top left one or the top right one, of course. Let's monitor our source VCO. That's a little bit too loud. Let's change up my sequence again. Something like that is okay. Yes, I'm enjoying that more. So this is just the pure square wave, the one we're seeing on data there. That's the one we're monitoring. But well, when I look at the output of the function generator, when using the signal input, we should start seeing a wave shape that is a little bit different. And I think you can already see it. Let's mute the original pulse wave and let's just monitor the output of the function generator. And as you can see, our original square wave is being slewed by the function generator. And you have separate control over the attack and the decay or release phase. So we can create different shapes from the pulse or square wave, and we can play around with the logarithmic or exponential setting on maths as well. And this gives us a lot of timbral control. Now you can see and hear that once I turn up the decay too much, or the attack, that we don't hear anything anymore. That's because the signal is getting so slewed, so filtered, that our oscillating signal is completely filtered out. And we can kind of misuse that to make the function generator behave as a VCA. So let's just see if I can send in a square wave LFO. Let me monitor it on data as well. Let's, well, I'm wondering why this is so slow. It should be faster. I was turning the wrong divider here. So the blue trace is just a square wave, square LFO going up and down. Let me see what the chat is saying. Radioblock Tirana says, I'm starting to understand why it's so important having a scope. Well, I learned a lot about modular since I've bought my first scope, and the first scope I had was actually a zero scope by VPME. I always tell people when they ask me about, hey, do I really need data? I think when you don't plan on filming your oscilloscope, that a zero scope is perfect. Usually 2 signals is more than enough, and well, it's just a really nice little scope and very inexpensive compared to data. Novak says, I love that area on the very edge of fading out now, and the 1U scope is so useful. Yeah, you don't need a big scope, but well, it's useful to have two signals, 2 inputs, so you can compare things like I'm doing right now. So what we want to do is like well, just modulate our decay and attack parameters with the LFO. You could look at it as it was a gate. So now the signal drops out whenever the gate goes up, but when I take this input here, you can kind of see how we can use maths or another function generator as a crude VCA. Let's change the LFO up to a stepped random. Let's increase the speed. Maybe I should make it unipolar. Let's bring in a kick drum for a moment here. Why not? And if you want to do more, you can still send the signal into the second channel of your function generator and use that just for filtering. Says the Zeroscope has a DIY version 2 if you're into that. Radio Block Tirana says the thing is my case does not have a space for 1U modules. Well, the regular Zeroscope is 3U. So if you have room for that, I think it's, if you enjoy like analyzing your audio or LFO rate signals, it's nice to be able to. It's very educational, if you ask me. Now I promised that I would show you why Contour 1 is different and, well, why not all function generators are equal. So let's set up my camera to do just that. I'm going to try to get everything in screen, like the function generator and my scope. I would rather have it a little bit brighter here. I think this will have to do. Maybe I can get a little bit more in focus. Something like that. So let's remove all of this. Let's remove the kick drum as well. Let's just remove all the cables here. The joyful removing of the cables. Now it's a little bit annoying that we have this cable dangling over here, so let's change that to a longer one. So this is just the cable carrying our sequence to our VCO, which is still cycle 5 by Uranilog. And let's go into the scope again. Why did I remove that cable? And let's use the stackable output here to mult the signal. Let me, just like before, send my signal into the trigger input of my function generator here, and the trigger input is there. Don't worry, I will start monitoring this and explaining a little bit better in a minute. Let's once again change the sequence up a bit. Let's change the tempo a bit as well. And maybe let's change the scale to minor. Yeah, that's sounding completely different, which is nice, at least to my ears. Let's patch up the regular output of the function generator. Let's turn off this blue trace here. So let's go for like medium setting here. So you can see that the red trace coming from contour 1, just as before, is well, this triangle-like shape. And when we were talking about subharmonics, it kind of worked on maths. It's the same on delta V by Cosmotronic. It kind of works, the subharmonics work because the function generator will not retrigger when it's in the rising, when it's on the rising edge, when the attack phase is going on. But when I bring up the attack here on contour 1, you'll see that even though, let's remove the sequence here for a moment, even though you can see that the attack phase isn't finished, it re-triggers on the next pulse from the VCO. So I asked Joran about this, why is your function generator so weird? And he actually said that at some point someone decided that it's the standard, no, let me rephrase that. There is no reason why it should behave like that, and like that I mean the way maths and delta V do. There's no real reason why you wouldn't re-trigger on your attack phase. So he's just made like it should be. It's maybe the wrong way to look at it, but well, he just made a regular function generator without the like added functionality of it not re-triggering on the attack phase. This means we can't do subharmonics the simple way we do it on other function generators, but there is a way. What we need to do is like manually mask the triggers of our pulse wave as long as the decay of contour 1 is happening, because we don't want it to re-trigger. So actually we want the triggers not to happen. What we do to make this work is we use select 2, and bear with me, it's been a while since I patched this up. We need to send our pulse wave into select 2. Select 2 is here. There's a signal input there. And select 2 has a select input, which selects between between 0 and anything that's happening on our signal input. I'm sorry, it's a little bit confusing, but what it does is it switches between nothing and whatever we have connected here. When there's nothing connected here, this is 5 volts, and we can use that select input. When we send a gate into it, select 2 will send out consecutive 0 and 5 volts. Anyway, we need to use the rise output on contour 1. So this output sends out a gate whenever the attack phase of contour 1 is happening, and we need to use that to mask any incoming pulses. Let me try and monitor this signal that we now have on select 2, also to make sure that I'm getting it right here. It might be a little bit wrong. As I thought, I'm doing things wrong here. Let me step out of the room for a moment and blow my nose. I'm sniffing here. Yes, that's better. So as I suspected, I can't remember how to do this, but let's see. So when we don't send anything into the select input, we can see that the blue trace, which is the output from select 2, is just the same as the signal that we are sending in, which is the oscillator. But we have to mask this. The thing is, I'm masking too much, which is very weird. So I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong here? So we're not masking entirely, which I don't really understand. The whole apologies for this, people. So that's not it either. Now I'm really confused. What happens when we choose the fall signal here? Surely that's not going to work. No. That's even worse. So, does anyone have a clue why this is not working? I know last time I did it, it was like more than a year ago, maybe even 2. I had some trouble figuring out how to do it. So it maybe wasn't the best thing to just wing it and hope for the best. But that's what you get for just jumping into a life. The thing is, I know I have to do it like this. But I don't know why it's not working. Let's remove the sequence to be a little bit more methodical about this. So what we want is the signal. The function generator should not re-trigger as long as the attack phase is going. This is the output, that's right. This is the input. This should be... Well, I'm really confused, so... That's right. And that's not right. Should we use the unity output? Maybe we should. But, well... No. Do I need to use this input here? Maybe that's it. Nope. Well, at some point I will have used up all my inputs and all my outputs. And if it then still doesn't work, well, I'm really lost. Which happens, as you can see. But well, usually I figure it out. But right now, it doesn't seem to be happening. So what we need to do is... what can I do here? So let's remove this and let's mute this signal for a while. Let's just be very methodical about this. When there is nothing patched in here, we have 5 volts. When I turn this knob, we invert it. So we want our signal to go through as long as this is high. I'm so confused, guys. Okay, so what? So when I send in 5 volts, the signal goes down. Then it looks at the second input. Okay. So as long as the attack stage is going, it should look at the second input, which is 0. Yeah. I don't think I will be able to figure it out, guys. I'm sorry to disappoint here. But, well, at least I got my point across that contour 1 is not the same as other function generators. What we can do instead is have a quick look at delta V. It's really a shame that I can't figure it out. it's really elusive, and I don't know why. I just don't want to waste everybody's time trying to figure it out live on screen. I will do this on my own time and then come back to it at some later point. Your case, it's not a case, it's a wall, Radio Blog says. Well, it kind of is. I like that you can mount Eurorack gear vertically because my studio is really, really small. So what I want to do here is just send my VCO that I've been using this whole time into Delta V to quickly show you, and I'm positive I will figure this one out, just to show you that you can make subharmonics just as easily with Delta V by just increasing the attack here. Let's bring down the volume of the original VCO. Let's bring up frequency. So you can hear that we are making subharmonics here as well. And on Delta V there's this nifty link switch there that lets us trigger the second function generator with whatever we are sending in to the first one, which, well, means that we can really easily use the second one for another subharmonic without having to even patch up a mult. And well, let's connect attenuated outputs from orbit 3 to modulate these two function generators. We have to attenuate them, otherwise it will be way too extreme. So if you remember correctly, we want to modulate the attack phase, which is causing me trouble on contour 1, but well, let's not talk about that again, at least not today. Let's increase the speed on orbit 3. Let's send all of this through to a filter again. And that's the last thing that I want to do today, actually. I wanted to keep the stream kind of short. I'm a little bit sad that I wasn't able to figure out how to make contour 1 do subharmonics. But I promise I will get back to it in a later stream, like redemption stream. Let me show you what I'm doing here with the filters. So I've melted my original signal into both filters. Let's use these, well, let's use the low pass outputs and I'll patch them up in stereo, so left and right. Let's connect the outputs of delta V. So what previously was left and right, let's send these subharmonics into the left and right filter here as well. This gives us a nice stereo situation. Novak says, sorry, been away for a bit, but the normal gyroscope is 3U. Yes, I have one. It's in my drawer at the moment. Let's increase the reverb here and the delay. And let's move the camera back to my desk here. Bear with me for a moment. So, there we go. Maybe I can, well, I should reattach my sequence. I mean, that's immediately a lot more interesting, isn't it? And let's connect the outputs of Odessa, the ones we started off with, to the filters as well. This is probably going to sound like shit. Novak says, got to go again, but this was a cool stream. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Novak. Thanks for joining. I hope to see you again sometime. Modulate the frequency of Odessa a bit. I'm going to just do some quick patching here without explaining too much. I just want to use a cycling signal. Maybe I should make it follow the tempo a bit. Let's use an output of an LFO here through filter 8 for doing some slew. Let's bring that something wrong here. something like that. And maybe we should introduce the kick drum again. But well, I want it to go slower, so let's use an LFO here on a divider. Something like that. Or maybe I can use sample and hold output of this LFO to trigger the kick drum. Something like this. And well, I said I was going to make it quick, but I can't help myself. I just want to add one quick subharmonic to this, since this was the theme of today's stream. I think that's only fitting. I want to have a low harmonic that's centered on the mixer. Run it through a filter as well, and I promise then I'm done. Oh, wow. Something like that. Modulation for the filters, because I cannot help myself. So thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to let this patch play, just play for a few moments here. If there's any questions or suggestions, please tell me now. Otherwise, I will just sign off in a few moments. Thanks for being here. It's always nice to have a few people active in the chat. Makes my live stream experience so much more enjoyable. If there's no questions, I'll go. Apologies again for not getting the Contour 1 subharmonic patch to work. I have to figure out what to do with Select 2. I know it's possible, but I just can't seem to remember right now how I did it. It's a little bit technical. I hope to see you again sometime soon. Thanks for joining. I hope you learned something. That's always nice. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. See you again soon. Bye.